The sun beats down on the cracked sidewalk, heat shimmering off the pavement. 11-year-old Malik Carter squints against the glare, his small hands gripping a faded cardboard sign. Lemonade, 50 cents. The letters are uneven, written in thick black marker, but they do the job. His stand, a wobbly folding table covered with a bright yellow cloth, is set up outside Carter's Auto Repair, the shop his father owns but barely keeps afloat. Malik knows he should be at home, cooling off in front of the box fan in their tiny apartment. But rent is due. Again. And the repair shop hasn't seen much business this month. His father's worried eyes, the whispered conversations at the kitchen table. Malik hears it all, even when they think he doesn't. So he sets up his stand, just like he does every summer. But this year, the customers are fewer, the coins dropping into his plastic jar coming slower. Across the street, at the heart of downtown Oak Ridge, is Benson & Company, a gleaming white building with tinted windows and gold-plated signs. It's the kind of place where people wear suits even in the sweltering heat, where luxury cars glide into valet parking like they own the sidewalk. Malik knows better than to cross that street. People like him don't belong over there. And people like them don't come over here. At least, not unless they want something. Malik wipes sweat from his forehead and glances toward the corner. That's when he sees him. A tall man, dressed too well for this side of town, strides toward Malik's stand. He doesn't fit in. His navy blazer looks crisp despite the humidity, and his shoes, polished leather, the kind that never touches dirt, tap against the pavement as he walks. He's white, like most people at Benson & Company, but there's something different about him. He stops at the stand, glancing down at the plastic cups stacked neatly beside the pitcher. "One lemonade, please." His voice is even calm, but there's curiosity behind it. Malik straightens his shoulders. 50 cents. The man pulls out his wallet, but instead of coins, he slides a $20 bill across the table. "Keep the change." Malik's eyes widen. $20? For one cup? He hesitates, but the man gives him a knowing nod. "You earned it." He takes a sip then, without another word, turns and walks away. Malik watches him disappear into the crowd. Strange. People like that don't come to his side of town, and they definitely don't give away money. He doesn't know it yet, but that one encounter is about to change everything. The next day, Malik sets up his lemonade stand again, still thinking about the man in the navy blazer. People like him don't just show up here. And they definitely don't hand out $20 bills for fun. But the morning starts slow. A few customers, Miss Janine from the salon, Mr. Lopez from the hardware store, drop in for a cup, leaving behind coins and small bills. It's not much, but it adds up. Then, just before noon, something changes. A sleek black car pulls up across the street, right in front of Benson & Company. The door swings open, and out steps a man Malik has seen before, but only from a distance. Mr. Benson. He's tall, broad-shouldered, and his tailored gray suit looks more expensive than anything Malik's family owns. His hair is combed back, silver at the temples, and his expression is the same as every other time Malik has spotted him. Distant, calculating. He's the owner of Benson & Company, the man whose name is stamped on the side of the building. The man who owns half of downtown Oak Ridge. And he's looking directly at Malik. Malik stiffens, gripping the edge of his table. Mr. Benson crosses the street, walking with the kind of confidence that makes other people move out of his way. He stops in front of the lemonade stand, glancing at the sign, then at Malik. "You're not supposed to be selling here," he says, his voice smooth but firm. Malik blinks. This is private property," Benson continues, cutting him off. "Technically, you're blocking the sidewalk. That's a violation." Malik's throat tightens. He's been setting up here every summer for the past 3 years. No one's ever had a problem. But something about Benson's tone, cool, dismissive, like Malik's just an inconvenience, makes his stomach churn. I'm not blocking anything," Malik says carefully. "There's plenty of room for people to walk." Benson raises an eyebrow. That's not the point. He glances at the plastic jar on the table, at the few crumpled bills inside. Then his lips curl, just slightly. "This isn't exactly a good look for the neighborhood, is it?" Malik swallows hard. He's heard that tone before. That word before. Neighborhood. It's not about the sidewalk. It's about him. Benson adjusts his cufflinks, already turning away. "I'll be speaking to the city about this." Then he walks back across the street, disappearing behind the gleaming glass doors of his empire. Malik stands frozen, heart pounding. He doesn't know what just happened. Not fully. But he knows one thing. Mr. Benson wants him gone. The next morning, Malik gets up earlier than usual, determined. His father told him to let it go, said rich men like Benson always get their way, but Malik knows this isn't fair. So, he drags his lemonade stand back to the sidewalk outside Carter's auto repair, chin high, shoulders squared. He won't back down. But as soon as he sets the pitcher on the table, a white and blue city truck rolls up to the curb. A heavy-set man in a neon vest steps out, clipboard in hand. "You the one running this stand?" he asks, already frowning. Malik hesitates, but nods. The man sighs like he doesn't want to be here. "You got a permit for this?" Malik's stomach drops. "A permit?" The man flips through his clipboard. "Gotta have a vendor's permit to sell on city sidewalks." I've been selling here every summer," Malik stammers. "Nobody's ever said anything before." The man shrugs. "Somebody complained." Malik already knows who. His hands curl into fists at his sides. "You got 24 hours to clear out," the man says, tapping the clipboard, "or we'll have to confiscate your stand." Then he walks back to his truck and drives off, leaving Malik standing in the heat, stomach twisting. That night, he sits at the kitchen table, his lemonade jar in front of him. His father counts the bills inside, sighing as he pinches the bridge of his nose. "It's not worth the fight, Malik," he mutters. "We don't have money for permits. Just let it go." "But it isn't fair." Malik bursts out. "I wasn't bothering anyone. He just wants me gone because I'm—" He stops himself, throat tightening. "Because I'm black." His father looks at him, tired eyes filled with something heavy. A knowing. A pain too old for Malik to fully understand. "I know, son," he says quietly. "But some fights, they cost more than they're worth." Malik's jaw clenches. He shakes his head. "No, not this time." The next day, Malik doesn't set up his stand. Instead, he goes looking for answers. He walks to the other side of town, past the gleaming windows of Benson and Company, until he finds the city clerk's office. It's a dingy little building, nothing like the polished businesses Benson owns. Inside, a bored-looking woman with glasses barely glances up when he steps to the counter. "I need to see the vending permit rules," he says, voice firm. She sighs but slides a binder toward him. Malik flips through the pages, scanning for the section he needs. And when he finds it, his stomach tightens. Vending permits are required for businesses selling on public property. But there's an exception. Temporary stands operated by minors for fundraising or personal earnings are exempt from permit requirements. His heart races. He didn't need a permit. Benson lied. That afternoon, Malik takes his binder of evidence to the only place he knows people will listen. Miss Janine's hair salon. Inside, the smell of burnt hair and lavender fills the air as women sit under dryers, gossiping. When Malik steps in, Miss Janine raises an eyebrow. "Boy, what you doing in here?" "I need help," Malik says, gripping the binder tight. "Mr. Benson is trying to shut me down." But he lied. "I don't need a permit." The salon goes quiet. The women exchange glances. And then Miss Janine leans forward. "Tell me everything." By the time Malik finishes, the whole salon is buzzing. Miss Janine calls Mr. Lopez from the hardware store, who calls Pastor Davis from the church. Within hours, the entire neighborhood knows what Benson did. And they're not staying quiet. By sunset, a plan is already in motion. Malik isn't fighting this alone anymore. The next morning, Malik isn't alone. His lemonade stand is right where it always was, but now a crowd surrounds him. Miss Janine from the salon, Mr. Lopez from the hardware store, Pastor Davis, and at least 20 other people from the neighborhood. They aren't just here to buy lemonade. They're here to make a statement. Malik watches as the black luxury car pulls up across the street, right on schedule. He knew Benson wouldn't let this slide. Sure enough, the moment the car door opens, Benson steps out, his polished shoes tapping against the pavement like a countdown. His face is calm, composed, but there's something in his eyes. Annoyance. A flicker of anger at the sight of the crowd. He crosses the street, stopping just short of Malik's stand. His gaze sweeps over the people gathered around, then settles on Malik. "I thought I made myself clear," he says, voice smooth, controlled. "You're not supposed to be here." Malik doesn't flinch. "I'm not breaking any rules." Benson sighs, shaking his head like he's dealing with a stubborn child. "You don't have a permit." Malik's heart pounds, but he stands tall. "I don't need one." A flicker of irritation crosses Benson's face. "That's not how this works. The city has regulations." Malik slaps the binder onto the table, flipping it open to the page he found at the clerk's office. "This is how it works. The law says kids don't need a permit for small stands like mine. You lied. A murmur ripples through the crowd. Someone mutters, he really tried to play that boy. Benson's jaw tightens. But then, instead of backing down, he lets out a low chuckle. You really think that changes anything? He gestures toward the street. This isn't about a permit, boy. It's about standards. This corner is an eyesore with you here. You think a few lemonade cups are worth more than the businesses that actually matter. The crowd stiffens. Miss Janine's arms cross over her chest. Pastor Davis's expression darkens. But Malik doesn't waver. It's worth more than you think, Malik says, his voice steady. And I'm not going anywhere. Benson exhales through his nose, then turns toward the crowd. All of you are really going to stand behind this? He laughs, shaking his head. This is why your neighborhoods never improve. You get too caught up in the small things, instead of real progress. Silence. Then, real progress. Miss Janine's voice cuts through the air like a blade. You mean when you buy up all our businesses and push us out? Mr. Lopez steps forward. You raised my rent so high I had to cut my staff in half. Pastor Davis shakes his head. You only care about this neighborhood when it makes you money. More voices rise up. The crowd presses in closer. Benson's confidence falters just slightly. But then, he straightens his suit, smirking. You think a little outrage is going to stop me? He scoffs. I own this street. You don't get to decide what stays and what goes. Malik clenches his fists. He's tired of this man acting like they don't matter. So he plays his final card. Actually, Malik says loudly, you don't own this sidewalk. The city does. Benson's smirk fades. Malik lifts his chin. I checked. This sidewalk is public property. You don't get to make the rules here. The crowd erupts. Some people cheer. Others laugh, because for the first time, Benson doesn't have an answer. He looks at Malik, then at the people around him. His jaw tightens. For a moment, it seems like he's going to say something, lash out, threaten something. But then, with a sharp inhale, he adjusts his cufflinks and turns. Without another word, he strides back across the street, disappearing into his glass tower. Malik exhales, shoulders dropping. He won. Benson storms back into his building, but the damage is already done. The crowd outside isn't just angry anymore, they're awake. For years, they'd put up with Benson's quiet takeover of their neighborhood, watching as rents skyrocketed and black-owned businesses vanished, replaced by shiny storefronts catering to wealthier, whiter clientele. They'd let it happen because they thought they had no choice. But today, a kid stood up to him. And he lost. Miss Janine pulls out her phone. I hope y'all recorded that, 'cause we 'bout to let the whole town know. Already live-streamed, says Mr. Lopez, shaking his phone. And people are pissed. Malik's heart pounds as comments flood in. People are sharing their own stories. Business owners talking about how Benson squeezed them out. Families explaining how their rent doubled overnight. The truth isn't just spreading. It's exploding. And then, the black luxury car pulls up again. This time, the driver's side door opens, and out steps someone new. A tall black man in a navy suit, no nonsense in his posture. His badge flashes in the sunlight as he approaches. City Councilman Andre Whitaker. Benson sees him through his glass doors and stops in his tracks. The crowd parts as Whitaker walks toward Malik's stand, scanning the scene before looking down at the boy himself. You Malik Carter? Malik swallows and nods. Whitaker gestures at the lemonade stand. This the business Mr. Benson had the city harass you over? Yes, sir. The councilman exhales, shaking his head. Then he turns, not toward Benson, but toward the city worker who showed up yesterday. The same man who told Malik to shut down. You work for Public Works? Whitaker asks him. The man shifts uncomfortably. Yeah. Whitaker folds his arms. Did you check if he actually needed a permit before you threatened to confiscate his stand? The worker's face reddens. I was just following up on a complaint. Whitaker doesn't let him finish. Who filed it? The man hesitates, then glances toward Benson's building. It came from this area. The crowd murmurs. Everyone knows what that means. Whitaker exhales sharply, rubbing his jaw. Then he turns toward Benson's building and marches right in. Inside, Benson is already barking orders at his staff. Get legal on the phone, no now. And I want our PR team drafting a response. The doors swing open. Whitaker walks in like he owns the place. Benson straightens, smoothing down his suit. Andre, he says, forcing a smile. What a surprise. Whitaker doesn't smile back. I just watched you lie to a child about city laws. Then you sent Public Works after him like he was some kind of criminal. His voice is steady, but the weight behind it is undeniable. That's abuse of power, Benson. Benson chuckles, but there's an edge to it. Come on now. It was a misunderstanding. Just trying to keep the neighborhood looking professional. Whitaker tilts his head. Professional? Or white? Benson's face twitches. That's not. You and I both know what this is. Whitaker pulls out his phone, tapping the screen. The city's already getting complaints. And not just about this. About you. Benson's jaw tightens. I don't know what you're implying, but I have done nothing illegal. Whitaker raises an eyebrow. Really? 'Cause I just pulled some records. He turns the phone so Benson can see the screen. A property transfer document. Signed by Benson. Benson's eyes flick over it, then his face pales. Whitaker watches him carefully. See, I've been hearing complaints about you for years. How you use loopholes to snatch up businesses before the owners even know what's happening. How you jack up rent so high, folks can't afford to stay. So I did some digging. He taps the screen. And guess what I found? Dozens of small business owners, most of them Black and Latino, mysteriously losing their properties. And every single one of those properties, he leans in, somehow ended up under your name. Benson's hands clench. You can't prove anything. Whitaker smirks. Oh, but I can. He pulls out another file, this time a copy of a leaked email. Benson snatches it, scanning the words. His face goes white. It's from his own assistant. A message detailing how Benson intentionally manipulated property values, bribed inspectors, and forced longtime owners out. Proof. Cold, undeniable proof. For the first time, Benson's mask cracks. This is a violation of my privacy. Who gave you this? Whitaker smiles. Let's just say, people are tired of being quiet. Outside, the crowd is still growing. More cameras. More reporters. And then, the moment everything shifts. A woman steps forward, raising her hand. I worked for Benson and Company, she says, voice shaking but strong. I saw him fake documents to get Black businesses shut down. A man steps up beside her. He doubled my rent overnight, knowing I couldn't pay. Another voice. He bribed the city to approve his developments while shutting down ours. Testimonies start pouring in, one after another. And suddenly, Benson isn't the one in control anymore. He backs away from the window, his breath coming faster. His empire, his reputation, his power, it's slipping. And Malik just stands there, watching the man who tried to crush him finally feel what it's like to be powerless. Benson's world crumbles in real time. The leaked documents, the testimonies, the live-streamed confrontation, it's everywhere. News outlets pick up the story within hours, headlines flashing across screens. Local developer accused of racial discrimination and fraud. Benson and Company. Under investigation for property manipulation. Community rallies behind teen entrepreneur against corrupt businessman. And then the final blow. The state attorney announces a full investigation into Benson's real estate dealings. A lawsuit from displaced business owners follows within days. Investors pull out. Stocks plummet. The city suspends his projects indefinitely. Within 1 week, Benson goes from untouchable to toxic. And by the next, his company is on the verge of collapse. Malik watches it all unfold from his lemonade stand, the very place Benson tried to erase him from. Customers flood in, not just for lemonade, but to show support. Miss Janine slides a crisp 20 across the table. Keep the change, baby. And keep standing up. Mr. Lopez grins, handing Malik a brand new sign for his stand. Looks like you're going to be here a while. Even folks Malik has never seen before stop by, some shaking his hand, others just giving him a nod of respect. But it's the kids that get him the most. A little boy no older than 8 tugs on Malik's sleeve, looking up at him with wide, hopeful eyes. You beat the bad guy, he asks softly. Malik blinks, caught off guard. He glances around at the bustling street, at the people standing tall, the businesses finally breathing, the neighborhood refusing to be erased. And then he smiles. Yeah, he says, voice steady. We did. The last time Malik sees Benson, it isn't in a boardroom or a shiny car. It's outside City Hall. Cameras flash as Benson shoves through reporters, his once perfect suit now wrinkled, his expression no longer smug, just desperate. Mr. Benson, do you have a response to the fraud allegations? Is it true you used racial profiling to drive out Black businesses? Will you be facing charges? Benson says nothing. He can't. not with his lawyer gripping his elbow, hissing something urgent in his ear. But for a moment, he looks up, and his eyes land on Malik. Their gazes lock. No words. No threats. Just recognition. Benson knows exactly who put him here. Malik doesn't gloat. He doesn't smirk. He just stands there, unshaken, unmoved, still here. And when Benson finally looks away, shoving into the back of a black car that's definitely not his own, it's over. For real this time. That evening, Malik and his father sit on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in streaks of gold and violet. His dad sighs, shaking his head. Never thought I'd see the day someone knocked Benson off his high horse. Malik grins, sipping his lemonade. Told you it wasn't just a stand. His father chuckles, but there's something deeper in his gaze, a quiet pride, a relief that his son refuses to be silenced. They sit in peaceful silence for a moment, the sounds of the neighborhood filling the space between them. Laughter, music, life. And then, his dad nudges him. So what's next? Malik exhales, setting his glass down. A slow smile spreads across his face. Something bigger.